Today on Amplified Whole Health.
I would encourage anyone at any level in the organization, any industry they happen to be working in, find a mentor. I just think it's just that important. I know in my career it has absolutely helped me. No question about it. I would not be where I am today in the position I hold, or without a mentor. Yeah, just great guidance along the way for sure.
Welcome to the Amplified Whole Health podcast, where personal and organizational health meet. I'm your host, Justin Collier, and my goal is to bring you insightful interviews with business owners and leaders from a variety of different industries. We'll be talking about employee development, leadership, company culture, and quality products and services, and how they drive success in business. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Well, welcome to the Amplified Whole Health podcast. Excited that you joined us today, and just want to remind people to take a look and like us and follow us on Facebook, etc. Today, I have Dan Jenkins in studio with me, and Dan, you're the Senior Director of Sales for the Southeast for a company by the name of Cepheid.
You got it.
All
That
right.
is correct.
Nice. And how long have you been with this organization?
Been with Cepheid now 11 years.
Okay, so a long time.
A long time.
Nice.
Long time.
And what keeps you there?
Really, it's about the people. We just have a great culture within the organization, and a lot of really talented people, dedicated, professional people, and really I think that's paramount, and that's really what's kept me there for 11 years. And the side benefit is we also have terrific products and that we sell into a growing market, which is always kind of fun too. But it's really about the people, namely.
So the people have kept you in it.
Yeah, you really have.
So, I guess, what does the organization do?
Yeah, so a little background on Cepheid. So what is Cepheid? So Cepheid is a molecular diagnostics company. And what's interesting is prior to the pandemic, not many people knew even what molecular testing was or PCR testing. Now PCR and molecular has become more of a household name than ever before. And so one of the tests that has helped put Cepheid on the map more recently is the COVID test that we sell. But prior to that, we have products that cut across really infectious disease testing, predominantly that's sold in hospitals mainly, and then we also have what we call our non-acute or physician's office business that we sell molecular diagnostics tests to.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very cool industry, and it's really growing.
So have you always been in sales?
Yeah, sales and sales management. Looking back over my career, though, I did a stint in corporate training for about a year. And then I also was in what we call corporate accounts for 2 years. But really have been in commercial sales my entire career between sales and sales leadership.
And always in this industry or this field?
Always in this field.
Okay.
Always in this field. Different segments of, generally more broadly, it's laboratory diagnostics. But yes, I mean, I just happen to be a molecular. But prior to that, I was in other areas of lab diagnostics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the people keep you there, but I'm curious, what about the role is exciting for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, thankfully, working for Cepheid is just been an opportunity for me to continue to grow my career. So 11 years ago, just as a frame of reference, when I started, we were probably about $180 million global company. We just finished the year at a little over $2 billion in sales. So we have grown a lot in 10 to 11 years time. And so with that, there's just been a lot of opportunity within the organization to grow and expand and lead in different areas. So that's really what's been a lot of fun about my journey.
Yeah. Well, you're a sales leader.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how many folks do you have that ultimately roll up to you?
There'll be 60 About 60 people.
60 people roll up to you.
Right.
And I guess maybe my first question around that part of it would be, how do you engage with that many folks?
Yeah, so that can be a challenge for sure. Of course, it's not a sales org of hundreds or thousands, but even with 60 people, it's still a
It's a
lot.
lot.
And what I generally try to do is to have routine calls, like at least on a monthly basis at an area level. As you pointed out, I look after the southeast area of the U.S., and that's really important just to keep people, like you mentioned, engaged, and just so everyone on the team understands the direction that we're moving in, our goals and objectives that we need to be achieving in a given year. And that's what I found is really critical, is just to have an open line of communication for sure. And then what I also do is hold routine staff meetings. And so the people that directly work for me, my direct reports, we're very much aligned with what the priorities are, and different corporate initiatives that we're after in the marketplace. And so that helps as well.
Wow. So you've got, these 60 folks, they're all remote obviously today, but I'm assuming they were all remote before.
They were.
Yeah.
They
And
were.
is
Yeah.
it primarily an inside or an outside sales?
It's all outside sales.
Okay. So it's an
Yes.
outside sales model.
Mhm.
So it was probably, even before COVID, you probably very rarely got together as a group. It was probably maybe once or twice a year.
A couple times a year.
Yeah.
That's it.
All
2 or
right.
3 times a year.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you get together.
Yeah.
But this is kind of the
This
same
is
thing for you.
new. Well, yeah, but I will say the last time we're all together was in January of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. We had a global sales meeting, and none of us knew at the time, of course, that the world was going to change, 30 days later. And since that time, we have all been remote, and we're doing a lot of things, though, right? Just virtually, which we never did before as an organization like the rest of the world. But it's been challenging, though, in a lot of respects, just to keep employees engaged and just have more routine dialogue and discussion, with folks, so they don't feel like they're completely remote, even though we all are.
Mhm.
So trying to make sure that we're doing our best to just keep people involved and let them know the success they're having in the market is really pretty phenomenal when you think about it. And we want to make sure that people feel good about what their accomplishments have been over the year's time.
Yeah. Well, when you have, let's just say you want to get into sales for an organization like yours, what would you tell someone who's new
Yeah.
coming into the role,
Yeah.
right? Brand new, maybe they're
Yeah.
just out of college.
Yeah, that's a great point. And a lot of times I'll be asked that very question. And what my guidance always is to start with working for a medical distributor. And so why do I say that? The reason is because medical distributors, they carry a very broad range of products that they're typically selling into a hospital or into a physician's office, lab, or clinic. And that really allows folks to just get a broad based level of experience and exposure to different products. And then from there, they can start thinking about, okay, well, this is the segment of diagnostics that I really like, something that intrigues me, I'm interested in. And then from there, they'll typically at that point move into a diagnostic company focused on that product segment. That's generally the guidance and probably the best approach.
How important do you feel it is for someone to really be excited about the products that they're selling?
I think it's everything. I think it's just a level of passion and enthusiasm that you have behind your product just makes all the difference in the world. And something, customers can see through it.
Hmm.
If you're not passionate about what you're doing and what you're selling, you're probably in the wrong job. You're probably working for the wrong company.
Yeah.
It's that critical. So, that's what we look for. We're looking for folks that have some experience in medical diagnostics that want to join our company. We're looking for that passion, that enthusiasm, that out-of-box thinking. That's like really critical. And the other thing I would say is it's not just about people that are applying to work for Cepheid that need to always have medical diagnostics experience. In fact, we actually are looking more broadly to more general healthcare experience and have been successful in another role. It could be pharmaceutical sales, just by way of example,
Sure.
or device sales is another area that we'll select from.
But it's just important to have a background that's a bit diverse, as you kind of get started.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what does employee development look like as a salesperson? How do you develop a salesperson?
Yeah, yeah. So another very good question. So we spend a lot of time training our sales team. And so what does that look like? Oftentimes it's sort of the tools that we use to run and navigate the business and look at funnel health and activity and all that kind of stuff, which is our CRM system. But a lot of it is product focused. So you need to know the product, you need to do the competition, you need to know the market that we're serving. You need to know the personas of the customer base that you're calling on. One of the things about Cepheid is with a very broad portfolio of tests that we sell into the market, you could be calling on the emergency department and then leave the emergency department and go to pharmacy and leave pharmacy and go to lab and leave lab and go to see infectious disease physician. So you need to know how that product fits into all of these different segments of the market, and each persona has a different need likely. So it's a lot of training early on.
Wow. So, thinking about the sales process and the fact that you have outside sales folks, that used to be able to go on site and like you said, sit down and talk to a physician or whomever. And now
That's right.
that has completely changed for them.
Yeah.
So this world that they were used to being able to navigate has now changed. And how did you coach people through that change?
Yeah. So what we wound up doing is spend a lot of time getting really good at virtual sales calls. So it has changed our industry really within the last year's time. And so we provided training on how to conduct a virtual sales call. Before the pandemic, we really didn't use the tools that are out there to conduct virtual sales calls at all, because as you're pointing out, we should go face to face and sit down with a customer, look them, eye to eye.
Yeah.
None of that for the last 12 months. And so we really had to respond to that. And so, yeah, we had several training programs that were to our training organization that were directed at exactly that. How do you engage people remotely? How do you move a sales process forward when you're not face to face sitting in the same room? And it's in some ways it's a lot more challenging. In other ways, you could be a lot more efficient though with your time.
Yeah.
Because you're not behind a wheel and you're not driving from account to account to account. You're in your home office, right? So you can actually conduct, if you're really good about it and strategic about it, you can get a lot more done in a much shorter time frame with virtual sales calls.
Well, how important was strategy and leadership in that transition?
It was critical. It was critical for sure. And like many companies that were faced with the same challenges, there were fits and starts. I wouldn't say it was a perfect implementation, but when I look back over the last year, we're really proud about what we accomplished. It was very, very challenging because if you think about the portfolio of products that we sell, COVID became obviously far and away the number one test, but we had calls with U.S. senators, we had calls with congressmen, we had calls with the White House directly that everybody wanted to have access to this test, and we, like every other medical diagnostic company, could not keep up with the level of demand, and so that in and of itself created challenges that we really didn't have a lot of experience with prior to the pandemic.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden now you're learning new things
Yeah.
and trying to pivot and make new decisions. And you've talked a little bit about employee development and what it's like to help employees grow and the training process or whatever. How about for yourself? What does employee development look like for someone at your level?
Sure. So we have development goals every year. So I'll work with the gentleman that I work directly for, and we'll come up with 2 to 3. We don't try not to boil the ocean and have 10 or 15 development goals. It's typically 2 or 3 development goals that are very time oriented. They're very specific, and they're achievable. And what we'll do is we'll start thinking about what is a stretch goal or stretch assignment, like something that I should be doing to to elevate myself, my visibility within the organization, or something that I just find in myself that I need to likely learn more about.
Mhm.
And so we'll write a couple of development goals to achieve that within typically a 12-month time frame. But it's a really good direct interaction with your leader.
Mhm.
So in my case, it's the gentleman I work for, and that happens every year. And then periodically during the year, we'll sit down and we'll go through those development goals, and just to make sure that in my case, I'm staying on track.
Yeah. Well, and then I'm assuming you probably follow a similar process with your direct reports and so on
Absolutely.
down.
It's exactly right. It starts at the L1 level and works all the way down,
Yeah.
right to the field. So everybody has the same objective, not the same objective, but the same requirement to have developmental objectives. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll pivot a little bit. You mentioned the importance of people. I'm curious, how important has culture been for you and your direct reports, let's say anybody who rolls up to you? How
Yeah.
important is that culture?
Culture is extremely important. I mean, in my mind, if you don't have the right kind of corporate culture, you're likely not going to be successful. You're not going to retain top talent. You're not going to attract top talent to the organization as you continue to grow. So, culture really, to me, is one of the critical areas that you really need to focus on. And for me, in looking at the culture of the company that I'm with, a lot of it boils down to trust of leadership.
Mhm.
If there's not trust in your leadership team, then likely you're not going to do as well in the market, and you're not going to be as successful, and it's going to cost you more. So, I really do firmly believe that culture is that important, and I'm really lucky that I work for a company that has a great culture.
Do you believe that culture is a top-down thing or a bottom-up thing?
I think the tone is set at the highest levels in the organization. So in my case, it would be the president, CEO, down, in and down.
Mhm.
But I really do believe that in my role, I am also a tone setter. You set the cultural tone for the organization. Anybody that's in people leadership specifically, I think it really has that responsibility to set the tone for the organization. Whatever organization, how big or how broad it is, it doesn't really matter, but they need to be setting the proper tone and create a positive culture.
So in a lot of ways, it's really the executive leadership team kind of sets that initial culture, if you will, that initial tone, and then everyone else has a direct role.
Absolutely right. Exactly right. So when I look at who's leading our company, it's very much open, honest, two-way communication. That really is the culture. It's a culture of innovation. So no matter where you are in the hierarchy of the organization, that is the standard. Is that you're going to be open and honest. You're going to be as transparent as you possibly can be, in that all of us have a responsibility to innovate and continue to do better every day. And that really is part of the culture of the company I'm with, and probably what keeps me there for a long period of time at this point.
Yeah. Well, when I think about innovation, and I think a lot of us think about innovation more at a product level. What does innovation look like at a sales level?
Yeah, it's just thinking differently and thinking outside the box and challenging yourself to look at opportunities differently and pull back sometimes. I think what happens with salespeople, and myself included, is you're looking at maybe one piece of an opportunity, let's say the hospital or health system, and not pulling back and looking at the bigger picture of how big can this be. And we have a mantra where we kind of said we want it all, and not to be completely selfish about it, but we have products that cut across the entire health system enterprise. And so we really believe that we have a solution to do exactly that. And so I think from an innovative standpoint, it's up to a salesperson or a sales leader up and down the organization to just look at their business differently and challenge themselves and challenge others that are on the team to think bigger and to take a more strategic approach to opportunities versus just looking at a specific product.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, how important is the cross-functional team for you all? I mean, when I think cross-functional, I think your sales engineering resources or your support organization or customer care, whatever labels you might have for folks.
Sure.
How important is that cross-functional culture?
It's another thing that you have to have a strong working relationship and collaboration across the organization. So, speaking for somebody that's been in sales and sales leadership my entire career, I would not have ever been successful without working closely with our field service engineers, our technical application support folks, our order management people internally, our legal department. I mean, the list goes, business operations, it goes on and on, right? In any organization, there are so many people that are also key to your success. So the sales folks, right, always, you get up on stage every year if you do well, and you get attaboys, and you go to P Club and do all these fancy things, and it's great, but there's so many people that have enabled you to get up on stage and be that successful that we always try to remember that, because it's just not one person or even a small group of people. It takes literally a team of support people behind us to enable us to be successful.
Yeah, you can't go at it alone and be successful.
No way. No way. Never happen.
Yeah. So what do you tell maybe younger sales reps or folks that are new to your organization about engaging with those folks that are cross-functional?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the first things that we'll do for any new hire is new hires will understand very clearly, very early in their career journey, that there are other functional groups within the organization that you really have to get to know and get to know quickly, and understand what their challenges are. So we'll also, this is prior to COVID, obviously, that there'll be ride-alongs. Like we would have a salesperson ride along with the field service engineer. We have a ride along with an application specialist. So they just get a sense for what the role is within the organization for that specific person. And I think that really helps. I think it does a couple of things. It does build the spirit of collaboration, and it builds understanding. And I think it just helps salespeople to really appreciate that it does take a lot of people for them to be successful in the industry. And I think that to me is really important.
Yeah, you end up walking in someone else's shoes, if you will, and having empathy and sympathy for where they're at and what it is that they're trying to accomplish in their role.
Exactly right.
And then how you can help them
also be successful, right? We want the entire team to be successful. It sounds maybe a little bit corny, but it really is true. We do. I mean, that's one of the things when you get back to culture that we were talking about just a few minutes ago, that I really find different about the company I happen to be with, is that no one tries to hold or withhold information to just have themselves be successful. We're really collaborative. And that was the other point I probably should have mentioned earlier, is that we will periodically, actually once a month, we get on the phone with a large group of people and we'll go through opportunity reviews, and we get strength in numbers, and you get 40 or 50 people on a call and look at specific sales opportunities. And because we don't know it all, but you want to be able to get advice from others that have been in the industry for a while.
Yeah.
Have different thoughts and ideas on how to approach a certain opportunity, or things that we haven't even thought about as a smaller team. So it's strength in numbers. And that's what also has enabled us to be successful for sure.
Yeah. So engaging other people to come up with ideas that how you can approach and solve a problem that isn't necessarily related to your team specifically.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Being able to share those ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sounds like a great idea.
That's right.
Well, I think about the importance of products and services, and what it is that you're actually selling, right? And we talked about the importance of believing in, right? How important is quality when it comes to that equation?
Yeah. Quality, obviously, another key ingredient to success of any business. We happen to really pride ourselves in the fact that we do develop and manufacture likely the highest quality product or one of the highest quality products that are on the market. So that makes our job to sell easier too, right? It just does by nature. But quality, what's interesting, again, I reflect back on the last year's time, that, and it's been all over the news, right? So there have been other tests for like the pandemic that we were just talking about earlier, COVID, that those tests are not very reliable. They're just not. And without going through all the technology differences, they're just not. And folks know that, and consumers know it now. So what's interesting to me is that quality has become much more important than price. Price is really not nearly as important as the quality of the product, particularly in the industry that I compete in now. And what's helped us really is the tests that are for COVID specifically that are more inferior than what we produce and what we manufacture. And now consumers recognize the difference of a molecular test versus a different kind of test. And what's really interesting to me, and being in this business for as long as I have, you have consumers that will go to a physician and say, I want a PCR molecular test. A year ago, no one had any idea what that was.
Yeah.
None. So quality is really, I think it's always been important, but I think the changes that we've seen in the market in the last 12 months have put a finer point on this notion of quality and how important it really is.
And why it matters.
Yeah, why it matters. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right.
Because it is one of those things where, especially right now, you can appreciate why quality is challenging. I mean, all of a sudden you have to ramp up and produce at larger volumes, and you have to, and you're engaged in so much more activity than you've ever been before. And you have this desire to meet needs, right? And so you kind of can get lost in trying to meet those needs, and you can't meet everybody's needs.
One of the things that you're 100% correct in what you said, but you can never, at least in my mind, and thankfully the company's mind, can't waver from quality.
Yeah.
But to your point, I mean, we have been challenged like never before to produce more and more and more of these tests to meet a demand that has completely outstripped supply. And it's not just the company I work for, it's any company that's in the same space. You just cannot keep up with the amount of demand that's out there. But one of the things that we will not waver from is quality. And so what are we doing? We're expanding on a global basis to try to meet the demand. The global demand for COVID tests. It's really been really extraordinary what's occurred in the last 12 months.
That's got to make you feel very good as a sales leader, right? Knowing that you've got a quality product that you're selling.
Sure.
And then it's got to make all of those folks that work for you and other departments feel the same way.
We're proud. I mean, honestly, we really are proud of the quality products that we do put into the market. In addition, the way that we have responded to a global pandemic is really very unique. I mean, hopefully none of us are going to have to go through this again for a long, long time. But I can tell you, as an employee of the company I'm with, that we're very proud of our contribution to patient management and literally saving lives. I mean, it's pretty cool when you think about that. That's what we're doing every day. We are literally saving lives. So I mean, it's pretty easy to be pretty proud about some of those accomplishments.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and it's got to make you feel good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious. You're selling these quality products, and you've got younger folks. What does it look like, or what would you recommend to someone who's younger, who's in sales and wants to continue to climb the ladder, if you will, right? Who wants to progress in their career, and they're starting off as I don't know, like an SDR as an example, or whatever it might be, their junior kind of role. What would you tell them?
It depends where they want to go, and I would challenge, and I do. I mean, I mentor several people within the company today, and folks that are looking to grow their careers, and my discussions with them, and to address your question, is pull back a little bit and really think about what are you interested in doing? And here's what I mean. A lot of younger folks will come up and say, I want to lead a team. Well, why do you think you want to lead a sales team? What is it about? Are you really passionate about it? There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. It's a great career. But do you really want to do that? Think about what excites you. And, and later on in your career, when you hang up your cleats, what do you have wanted to accomplish in your career journey? And if it's people leadership, terrific. If it's marketing, or if it's trading, or if it's corporate accounts, or it's running a business operations team. So that's my guidance I think some younger folks will just assume they want to lead teams. And then when you start peeling back the onion and really questioning them, I think it just helps to give a little bit more guidance in terms of building a career that's broader based. And so what we encourage folks to do is to go into marketing for a year, go into sales training for a year, get some cross-functional experience. And when they do those things and they still want to lead an organization, they just have a much better understanding, a deeper understanding of what it really takes to be successful in a people leadership role.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned mentorship and that you're mentoring some folks today. How important has being mentored for you personally? Has that been important for you?
Been enormously important in my career. And in fact, I still get mentoring today from an external coach. And I find it incredibly useful. And the reason is because when you're mentored by somebody that has your best interest at heart, they want to see you be successful and grow, but somebody also that's going to push back and challenge a little bit. What you don't want as a mentor to just say, yeah, Dan, you're doing it all right. That's great. Keep doing what you're doing. You want to be challenged a little bit. And that's what I think is my role as a mentor. And I think, the person that is mentoring me pushes back quite a bit, and just make sure that you really truly know what you want to be doing and what you're interested in doing and where you want to take your career journey next. And I think it's just really critical. I would submit to you that no matter where you are in the organization, what industry, find a mentor. Yeah, I think it's that important.
Really?
Find a mentor. Absolutely. Somebody that you trust, but somebody that's going to challenge you.
Yeah. And do they need to be in the same field, or can they be in something different?
They could be in something totally different. In fact, I would advocate that if you find somebody that's a great mentor, but that's completely out of the industry, sometimes it's probably even better that somebody that really knows the same industry you're in. You just can look at it truly objectively, right? And I think that is also is really beneficial. Somebody completely outside of the industry, because what you have is that when you have folks that are in the industry for a long period of time, they kind of know how organizations run. Organizations are kind of all run the same in the same industries. And so they may not be giving you sort of that more maybe objective feedback or something that you can really truly learn from. We got somebody from outside the industry that doesn't know a thing about medical diagnostics. I can see that's valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you find a mentor? What's a process look like for somebody?
Yeah. So within the company I'm with, we have a mentoring program.
Okay.
For anybody. If you're a sales rep or a sales leader, you can reach out. We're very open to continue to create even broader mentoring relationships. But in my particular case, there is a gentleman that had done consulting work for our company for a number of years, and he's just terrific at what he does and has a abundance of knowledge across industries, by the way, not just in diagnostics.
Yeah.
And so I just elected to use him, and he has been terrific. And I've been mentored by him for 3+ years now.
So what did that conversation look like? You just called him up on the phone and said, "Hey, I need a mentor," or?
Well, yeah, that's kind of how it started out. Actually, I'll tell you what, it was part of, we were talking about development. a little while ago, and that was part of my development several years back. And I just said, I really think I need an outside, out of the organization mentor, and my direct manager thought that was a great idea, and so just started having monthly calls, and then eventually they turned into quarterly calls, but we still keep them every quarter. I'm on the phone with this gentleman, and they're very enlightening, and I learn every single time. Every single time, I kid you not. There's always a pearl of wisdom. I will get off the phone and say, I never thought of this particular way, or challenge myself, or challenge my ability to lead, or um, or what initiatives are we going to be pursuing, and what does that look like over what time horizon. It just gives you really, really good insight into the business. And again, he doesn't know that much about the business, but that's even better. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. You started this conversation with people are the most important thing.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about the importance of having someone mentor you. In order to grow as an individual, the importance of having other people around you to help you through that process is
Absolutely.
critical.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's I would encourage anyone at any level in the organization, any industry they happen to be working in, find a mentor. I just think it's just that important. I know in my career it has absolutely helped me. No question about it. I would not be where I am today in the position I hold, or without a mentor. Yeah, just great guidance along the way, for sure.
Interesting. Well, I want to come back to, we talked about um, managing people below you. I'm curious, how do you think about the importance of managing up?
Yeah, um, it's very important. So it's one of these things where, in some ways, I would say it's nuanced. So, and what do I mean by being nuanced? I think that if you're working for a leader, like in the case of in my career and the person today that I happen to be working for, it's one of partnership.
Mm.
So it's not that difficult in a way to manage up, because we are like minds, and it is truly a partnership. And this person happens to be very collaborative and is very open to new ideas and suggestions. But at the same time, if I disagree with something, you're free to speak your mind professionally.
Sure.
Always professionally and respectfully, but you can always get your point across if you disagree. But here's the thing, and this is what I challenge my direct staff to do too. Once a decision is made, everybody gets behind it. You may not agree all the time, and there have been plenty of occasions where I haven't agreed with a particular decision, but you need to have alignment behind the decision, and no waffling, right? So once the decision is made, that's the expectation. You get behind it and you go out and execute. And so I've been really thankful that I have a management team in place that I can have very open and honest and transparent conversations. But that's how I help. That's how I personally manage up. I think managing up is also about organizational visibility, and it's getting to know the senior leaders of whatever company that you're working in, and make yourself available, and reach out. And it depends on the coach of your organization for sure, but I've been really lucky that I can have conversations with very senior level leaders in the company, and they're always open to it.
Hmm.
Pretty unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of being open for conversations, I think that there's an intimidation factor for many, right? Where you're young, you're just getting started, and here you have all these executives and leaders that are older and have been doing this for a long time.
Right.
How would you advise them to approach a leader and open up that line of communication?
Yeah, I think that first, I think a more seasoned leader knows that they're going to have a lot more experience than the young person they're going to be speaking to, for sure. Yeah, but I really think that you just reach out to the
Mm.
to the person. Obviously, it depends on how high in the organization that person might be.
Yeah.
You should probably clear it with your direct manager first before directly reaching out to a senior leader for sure,
Hmm.
and make sure that that person supports it. But assuming that all has happened, my experience has been that more senior leaders are very open to taking the time. And something, they enjoy it.
Mm.
They enjoy it because they're proud of what they've done and what they've accomplished in their career. And if they can provide guidance and, kind of pay it forward, they're, my experience has always been they're very receptive to it.
Yeah.
To coaching younger folks. And in me in particular, and being in this industry for 30 years, that's one of the things I love to do. I just enjoy doing it. And long after I'm hanging up my cleats and, I'm going to retire, I got folks that are going to come up behind me. And that's what makes me really proud of building an organization and enabling people to grow. Because long after I'm gone, there's going to be people that could be running the business that I'm not any longer, and I'm going to be sitting back and honestly looking very interested in their success and how they're going to kind of carry the organization forward. I think I'm going to get a lot of personal satisfaction out of that.
You can hear, or I've heard the statement that you should always be training your replacement. What do you think about that?
100% agree with it. 100% agree with it. In fact, the company I'm with, we go through what we call an organizational talent assessment. We do it a couple of times a year, and really important. It's important that me as a leader in the company, that I know who's going to be taking my seat. We need to know who's taking the person that just took my seat, that person's seat, and all the way down. So we do a lot of work, honestly, with developing people and getting them ready for their next role, next assignment. A lot of work on succession planning that occurs, as I said, twice a year. So particularly in a company that's growing as fast as we are, you need to do that. It's just essential. And the other part of the culture of the company I'm with is that what I really appreciate is that we have a specific metric, what we call an internal fill rate. So for leadership positions, we want to make sure that we're promoting from within. So that is just even that much more important, that we have development plans for everybody, and that we have succession planning. We take it really serious.
Yeah, people get worried about this idea of training their replacement because they're like, well, then I'm not needed. Yeah. And you're right. You're now able to go do something else
that's right,
that you can provide value in.
That's exactly
because you
right.
freed up your time.
Yes. Yeah. I'm never concerned about, here's what my philosophy is. I want to go out and hire and recruit and develop and train people that are better than I am. I want to surround myself with people that are better doing what they do than what I do, and as smarter. And I don't think anybody should feel like they're working themselves out of a job. That's part of a role as a leader, is to make sure that we're getting folks ready to take a position in the organization. And it doesn't have to be your position that you're sitting in. It could be another position in the organization that's also critical. So we spend a lot of time and energy making sure that folks that we believe have potential and high potential, that they have very active development plans in place, and that we're doing everything we can to support them in their career.
What do you personally look for in someone as you're looking for those people that could be filling your shoes in the future, right? Who are coming up behind you? What do you look for? What qualities?
Yeah, somebody that has a really good knowledge of the business,
Mm-hmm.
right? As we were talking about earlier, someone that has spent time not just in the sales silo, not just the salesperson, became a really good region director, became a really good area director, but somebody that has challenged themselves and moved into a different functional area of the company, whether it's a business operations role or a technical support management role or marketing. I mean, it could be all kinds of opportunities out there. That's particularly what I am specifically looking for is somebody that just has a broader perspective of the business and not just a siloed vision.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's good. Well, I know we're kind of at a point where we should probably wrap up. I guess the final thing I would probably ask about is communication. We've kind of tiptoed
Yeah.
around it or talked a little bit about it, but when you think about communication, what is the impact on the organization?
It's is I would argue it's one of the most important things that a leader needs to be doing, should be doing, is to be communicating with their teams and with their organization. This whole notion of open, honest, two-way communication is really critical, and that's what drives a higher level of engagement. And frankly, that's what enables us to be more successful. So it's that important, and we open lines of communication. We're talking about some of the, routine, calls
Yeah.
that we have, right? But it goes beyond that. We do what we call skip levels, and that's me as a leader just getting on the phone with a sales rep, calling them up, and just talking about anything. How's it going? What are your struggles? What are your obstacles? How can I help? It's amazing having those 15, 20-minute conversations, what that does for morale. It's amazing. And as we're talking about, the level of engagement and that it demonstrates that you care. You really care. And I think that's a critical part of leadership is setting everything else aside. Do you care about the people that are working for you? And I think if people need to know that. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. That along with your motivation. If somebody that's working for you feels as if you're motivated just to continue to move up in the organization, that's probably not going to go over so well, right? But if somebody really believes that you're motivated to serve them, this whole notion of servant leadership, you're going to be a lot more successful, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you, Dan, for coming on the show and telling us about your story and your perspective as a sales leader and what it is you look for in other people, but then also just how important it is for you to be a servant leader and what does that really look like and how you can live that out.
Great, Justin. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thanks. I appreciate it.
I'm grateful you chose to listen. Please help us out by following, liking, or subscribing to our content at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Take care and have a blessed day.